Yes, and welcome to Car Market Live. My name is David Jacobson, and I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to our second episode. We're very, very excited. And we also want to thank you for being part of Car Market, those of you that has helped us grow to a really unbelievable place right now that was unexpected over the last few months. And take the time to drop onto PCARMARKET.com and see the cars that are on there, the memorabilia, and all the really, really cool stuff that we have going on. But without further ado, today we're going to stay in the fast lane like we were last week, and reaching the pinnacle of anything that you do is not very easy to do. And the next guest has clearly reached the pinnacle of their creations. However, what's exciting, it's also like brand new because of the vibe and how exciting it is around what they're doing. His passion is contagious. His pursuit of perfection is really endless. And we, as the Porsche community, are the beneficiaries of getting to drool and really see these creations at car shows. And maybe you're lucky enough to own one day. So without further ado, let me introduce Rod Emory. Hey, Rod.
Hey, David. Really appreciate you and the PCAR Market team having me on here. And just love what you guys are doing. Love the show, and had an opportunity to catch the episode last week, and huge fan of you guys and Michael, and it was cool to see some of that stuff, and love the platform you guys are creating. It's definitely needed in our industry, and I think you guys are doing a great job.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And, obviously it'd be remiss to not really start at a place, I think, that we all have our hearts right now, with COVID-19 and with what's happening the last 3 days, and I know your crew is just back. So how'd you make it through all this time, and how's things going for you and your family?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a heavy time for all of us, and a time of reflection and, kind of soul searching, and also just, time to hold hands and get through this. The COVID-19 situation, when we were together at Amelia Island, that was right at the beginning of this thing. And then to come back that week and have to send all of my employees home for 2 months, which fortunately I was in a position to do that, sending them home with pay and just letting them focus on their families and health. But it was tough. My wife and I continued to show up every day and take packages, and I did all the metal work I could. And we just kind of came together as a family, my wife and kids and I, and used the 2 months, so just over 7 weeks, to really dial the shop in, organize our projects, literally organize every nut and bolt in the shop. And that was really great. So we made the best out of the situation. And the time off, the employees, everybody's been back now for about 2 weeks, and they were eager to come back.
Sure.
They're creative guys, and they love being busy. And although they enjoyed the first couple of weeks being home, they were missing each other and missing the life that they enjoy so much here at work. And so, hard at it. And then, here we're hit with another really unfortunate situation. But I think, this situation is bringing to light a lot of things that we all need to do to change. And
Yeah.
Everybody has their views, and I'm not one to bring up, politics or anything like that. I just, I will say this: I'm in support of a voice and protesting, and just because I think that's what our country was founded on, and we're given an opportunity to voice our opinions. I am in support of that. The hard part is that there's too many people that are opportunity seekers that, are using this time to reap havoc. And, that's been something that's really affected us this week as a nation, but even us just personally right here, because California is, a pretty active state when it comes to issues like this, and,
Sure.
and culturally diverse. And, just down the street, we've got a couple really, really heavy hot spots, and it's forced us to take some preventative, measures and security and those types of things, and to really just reassure our customers and also our employees that we're going to stay as safe as possible and do what we need to. It's a little tricky because just like you guys, I don't know what the curfew is there, but we just spent 2 months, being, pretty much on lockdown. And here we are now, 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. You can't go out, and it's really tough for small businesses that just opened their doors that now have to board them up. So, I feel for every aspect of this thing, and not taking it lightly. Just hope that we can all, hold hands, get through this, and support the cause, but also not tolerate some of the effects that are the negative side.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, like you said, cool heads, have to stay cool, and the leaders need to really just stay focused on a message of unity and love, and really compassion. It's really about compassion and caring for others, which is sometimes lost in the whole thing. It really is.
Right.
So moving on, because I know we could talk about this all day, because there's really a lot to talk about when it comes to, just humanity and how people react, and the things that we have to deal with as a whole. So I'm going to move on, and I'm going to just, I wanted to start off. Listen, most people who are following us, PCARMARKET, get it, probably know who you are. So I spent some time, I thought it was important to really try to maybe uncover some things that people don't typically know about you. Don't get nervous. We're not going to go into nothing weird, but one of the places it's always good to start, and I know I've heard you talk about this, is your dad Gary and your grandfather, and I know how important the legacy and where you started is. So just if for the people that maybe don't know you that well, or maybe some of the ones that do, is how important is it that you carry on the legacy that you've been given and that you've been entrusted to?
Yeah, I mean, I've personally been in this business or industry just over 30 years as a profession. I started building cars in high school, and started building my first one in 1988, finished it in 1990. So, just over 30 years. But like you said, there's a deep, rich history that put me in a position and a place where I had the passion and love for these cars. And that starts with my grandfather. He was one of the early pioneers in customizing and the car culture, specifically here in Southern California. But because, as we know, many of the great publications of the 40s and 50s, like Road and Track and Hot Rod Magazine, Carcraft, all those magazines were headquartered here in Southern California. So a lot of the articles, how-to articles, those types of things were they were following some of the builders here in Southern California. So they were a lot of the trendsetters, George Barris's and, Gene Winfield, and, my grandfather, Neil Emery, and his brother-in-law, Clayton Jensen, that had Valley Custom Shop. But you also had the other side of it, the hot rodding side, like Alex Exidius and SoCal Speed Shop, and, all the other, really, truly pioneers in car culture. So my grandfather, he operated his shop in the 40s and started in the 40s right after the war, and just built some of the most amazing and iconic custom cars, and was a pioneer in channeling and sectioning. That's where you take 4 inches out of the midsection of the body of say a 50 Ford, right, and make the car look a little more European. And he always said, Rod, customize everything, but make it look like you hadn't even touched it or you didn't customize it. And that's the key. Oh, yeah. Fast forward a little bit, my grandfather's in the Hot Rod Hall of Fame, and Valley Custom Shop is well known worldwide in that arena. Wow. Because the cars they built are timeless, and they were on the covers of magazines in the 40s and 50s, and won the shows and really set a lot of the trends. But then my grandfather went to the Porsche side in the early 60s. And a friend of his started or bought the Volkswagen Porsche dealership in Newport Beach. So he was the body shop man at the owner, Chick Iverson, hired my grandfather to come and run the body shop. So that's when my family shifted from hot rods to custom car, or from hot rod custom cars to the Porsche world.
Now do you understand how strange that is for most people to grasp? You talk about the diversity in this world, in this country. When you look at the West Coast versus the East Coast, we had a hot rod show here. We had one of the Riddler cars and grade 8s, and we've had some amazing product. But the hot rod guys have no interest in the Northeast here in the Porsche world. Yes, they'll drive a new turbo. You know, they'll have a new turbo in their garage, but there's not an interest in really, in most cases, for really intertwining the worlds as far as customizing and getting into the early Porsches like 356s or 911s. I find that extremely fascinating. To you, it's like just a thing that you would go from hot rods to 350. Is it typical in California, maybe Southern California, that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, the car culture in California is really diverse, but intertwined and
Hmm.
mixed. A lot of our friends and customers, they've got both custom cars, traditional hot rods, and Porsches, and you've got because of the culture that was established here early
Yeah,
on
I
with like
guess.
Peterson Publishing, for example. Peterson Publishing, spanned everything from custom cars to hot rods to sports cars, and so there was that blending and mixture.
Yeah.
And the events, even today at the Peterson Museum, it's a cultural blend, automotive cultural blend, and it's a real, it's a really amazing thing to
Mm.
be a part of, because there is respect and there is love for other marks, and we all come together. So my grandfather, the reason he decided to shift from that, and it was a change for him, because he had done some work on some Porsches in the 50s and 60s, because he was a metal man. So he could take a twisted, bent piece of metal and make it look as good or better than new. And a Porsche, as you know, is at least the 356s, they're complete unibodies, which means the fenders
Right.
don't even detach from the car. So little nose tap on a 356 and it screws up your door jambs and in the front and rear, and you can even get wrinkles in other places. And so
Big insurance claim.
yeah, exactly. And so
Yeah.
it took a quality craftsman to bring those cars
Yeah.
back, and the 60s in car culture shifted a bit from the 50s. 50s was a lot of customizing, a lot of hot rodding, and then in the 60s it shifted, and not that it's a bad thing, but it shifted more to really exotic wings, and there was a lot of like movie set cars that you see some of the stuff Barris did and some of
Right.
those guys,
Yeah.
but also the creative and real custom paint was a huge thing, and a lot of lowriders and like wild paint jobs. And my grandfather was more of a kind of traditional custom car builder. He loved the cars to be jet black and straight as an arrow. And when he saw that shift, he was like, I don't know that I want to do insurance work, and I don't know that I want to do crazy paint jobs. And the Porsches were a great challenge for him, because he had to really focus on his metalworking skills,
Yeah.
and the culture accepted him, and he became, along with my uncle, who was his apprentice, became some of the most well-known Porsche restorers. There's cars in the Porsche Museum. There's an A Coupe that was one that they did in the late 70s, early 80s, and so
Oh,
so
that's
yeah,
cool.
my family
Yeah.
continued doing that, and then my dad was, he started Porsche Parts Obsolete, which was, my dad isn't really known as, well, he's known as a car builder because he's got lots of great ideas, but his work was more surrounding the parts end of the business, and helping Porsche retain the vintage parts, and selling parts to everybody worldwide with Porsche Parts Obsolete. But he
Wow.
was also a creative guy and built the first Baja Bug with my grandfather, and then he and I started building cars when I was a kid. So for me, it's a natural progression, and
So, so,
I,
So no, I want you to. I don't want you to leave the Baja Bug because again, as much as I know about you, I had to do a little bit of research to get a little deeper. And one of the things I found fascinating was the Baja Bug. You know how
yep.
important it is to you, and I think that weren't you? There's a project you were involved with that as well.
Yeah, so the history of the Baja Bug, and off-roading and desert driving in Southern California is another huge part of the culture. You have very iconic races like the Baja 1000, Baja 500, which started in 1968, and those races are all centered around out in the dirt, having fun, and going as fast as you can. And so the Baja Bug, my dad and his family would always go out to Ocotillo Wells and ride motorcycles. And my dad wanted a Myers Manx dune buggy.
Mm.
Bruce Myers built one of the most, iconic, off-road vehicles, the Myers Manx. And,
Yeah, we had
and
one
my dad
here.
just didn't,
Yeah,
yeah,
very
they're,
cool.
they're awesome.
Very cool.
And on a VW platform, and those cars, the trend that he started with those is just something that's lasted, that's been timeless. My dad always wanted a Myers Manx, but just didn't have the money, and young family. And he was working at the parts counter in the mid '60s at Chick Iverson, and one of their customers came up and said, "Oh man, I just wrecked my '57 oval window ragtop. Let me price out the parts." And my dad says, "Well, what happened?" He got rear-ended, and the front was smashed. The car was smashed front and rear. And and they priced out the parts, and it was just too expensive to repair. And he said, "Yeah, maybe I'll just get rid of it." And my dad says, "Well, I'll take it. What do you want for it?" My dad ended up trading him for a little Suzuki motorcycle, and had this, '57 oval window Bug, and rolled it back into the body shop at Chick Iverson. And he and my uncle and my grandfather rolled the front fenders, like cut off what was bad, and then rolled the front fenders, put another set of front fenders in the rear, rolled the edges, lopped off the hood, put a reduction gearbox, jacked the thing up, put Anson Sprint wheels on it, lights. They took out all the glass and put like vinyl type windows that turn snap in, and built just this awesome off-road type vehicle. And, my dad shows up at an event, people went crazy. He'd take it out to Ocotillo Wells and drive it in the desert. Everybody loved it. And a friend of his, who was the main fiberglass guy for Bruce Myers at Myers Manx, said, "Hey, Gary, are you going to do anything with this idea? This is unbelievable." And my dad says, "No, I'm just going to enjoy this thing and love it." And he says, "Well, I want to build a kit that's based on this idea." And so a guy, Drino Miller, who was a friend of my dad's, built the first fiberglass Baja Bug kit based off of the idea and the concept that my dad did with this steel bodied one. And that was the birth of, the Baja Bug as we know it today. My dad and grandfather built the first steel one, and then the first fiberglass one was built by Drino Miller.
And now part of the California culture, part of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, literally thousands of Baja Bugs have been built, and they're still raced today in Class 5 and Class 5 Unlimited in the Baja 1000 and 500 and the Score series. And they're just so much fun. I mean, we go out to Glamis, we still see them all around. We go out to the desert, and so yeah, it's neat to see something that's 60 years in the making, and still being loved. And it was just based on a concept of, let's have fun, let's hot rod out a Volkswagen, and
yeah, we have that here. We go out to the desert about 20 miles outside of Manhattan. No.
Yeah, right.
Before I get into something else about community with you, I just wanted to talk about the Greg's New York Brooklyn build. The car.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, only because there's we had it at Driven to America. We had the car there, and there was Singers, and we had 550 Spiders, and that car drew more attention than anything else there, and including myself, because the car is absolutely gorgeous to look at. The execution is amazing, and the owner is a great guy and so proud to be driving one of your creations. So tell us a little bit about that car. And I know it went back to you for a little repair. As a matter of fact, when I was at your place during your open house, and we saw it there, which it was getting, I think, a little repair on it, right?
Yeah. Craig and his wife, really a great couple, and and he's had newer Porsches, but he really wanted to get a couple of custom cars built, and approached me a few years ago and said, "Rod, I want you to build me something really special, and it's going to be a car that my wife and I are going to enjoy." And so we found a car that was that needed a lot of love. They all do. And actually the car came out of New York. I got it from Adam up at Unobtainium, and it was a notchback that had some pretty significant damage. And so we shipped it out here, and I leaned the windshield back, I leaned the headlights back, and changed the nose angle a little bit, changed the rockers on the car. There's so many subtle changes to it that you don't really pick up on. Change the dash, change just so many things, little openings for the oil system and all that. And then it has my fuel injected 2.5 or 2.6 liter 4-cylinder 911 engine in it. And so it's 260 horsepower and 1,900 pounds, and really a fun car to drive. And now Craig, he's gone all in. He's having a Gunther Works car built right now, and he's having fun. and I know he loves the whole scene back there and the support from all of you guys. And he, he loves to drive the cars, which is why the car was out here. He was, in Brooklyn. He was driving it and got rear-ended by somebody that was on their cell phone. And it was a bummer. He called me up just
boy.
bummed out. But I said, look, see what the insurance is going to cover. I said, and let's just pencil it out so that I can do the work, and we'll discount our end, and to cover the cost of shipping, and let's do it right. And so we shipped it out here and did a full repair on it, and it's as good or better than it was originally. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's back to normal.
Stunning car. And in that area is, so your cars are beautiful. We look at them, and what is it that you would tell? There's a lot behind the scenes. There's a lot of things you can't see on these cars that make them even more special. So without putting you on the spot too bad or talking any super trade secrets, what are some of the things that you do to these cars that people don't see? What are some of the important stuff behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing to understand is that, the 356 is an amazing car to start with, but, they were designed in the late 40s and built with, primarily like VW type components or just evolved Volkswagen components, the way the engine and transmission and suspension and stuff are, and the brakes. So, for me, it's all about dragging as many parts as I can from other models of Porsches and coming up with a 356 that's a little more modern and drivable today, but not taking away the charm and the smell and the sound of, what we love so much about a 356. And, so for me, it's taking a car that was originally 60 horsepower drum brakes with a mediocre transmission and giving it 200 to 260 horsepower and brakes that, stop like a newer 911, but still have that look of the old school drums and wide 5-bolt pattern. But really, some of the things that we do that you don't really see is that, the rear suspension's fully adjustable. It's 911 rear suspension, so we can adjust the camber and all that. But also, I changed the torsion housing and put an adjuster in the center of the torsion housing that allows me to weight balance the cars and adjust the side by side ride height, but also get the weight balance dialed, because as you can build an amazing car, but if you don't tweak the suspension and get it aligned and get the weight balance right, and you've got 70% of the weight on one front tire as opposed to having it equal on both front tires, it affects your braking, it affects the way it turns. Yep. And so by making some of these things, building some of this into our car, we can now get the cars down to a few pounds different side to side, and we can get the cars really planted on the ground. So that's some of the stuff that we do that you don't really see. Also, chassis stiffening. We stiffen the chassis up quite a bit because they're unibody, spot welded together, but they weren't designed to have 200, 3-4 times the power. So we have to stiffen the chassis to make it really drivable, so that the doors aren't rattling and closing up a little bit when you get hard on the brakes and that type of thing.
So how many cars have you built to date?
Almost 200. I mean, if we count the cars that are, and this is over a 30-year period. So, 200 sounds like a huge number, but it's over a 30-year period. Right now in the workshop, we have 15 cars in progress, and we have about 35 or 40 on the waiting list, and we can finish about one car a month. So, roughly 10 to 12 cars a year, sometimes 15, depending on the range of work that we're doing on them. But if I count the cars that are in paint right now, we're just at 200.
And if somebody wants to buy a car from you, is there even a chance of getting a car actually at this point? Or are you looking at 3-4 years down the road? Or
yeah, I mean, very rare do our cars come up for sale. I mean, there's every once in a while, we'll see one of our old race cars pop up on your site, the other auction site. A couple of our cars have sold on there. Very rare do they sell, because most of the people that we're building them for, like Craig, they're invested in the project. They love it. We've collaborated together. The car that I built for John Oates, that was a creative, process that he and I came up with together. And so, they take real pride and ownership in it, and they just don't want to let them go. But every once in a while they do come up for sale. But yeah, right now, it's about a 2-year waiting.
And I'm sorry. I think I saw one sell, and I think it was more than it went for quite a bit. I,
Yeah,
it's incredible.
yeah. I mean, we've, years ago, people would be like, "Oh, Rod, you can't modify a speedster. You just can't take a '56 speedster and modify
Yeah.
it." And I'm like, well, if the car didn't have its original engine, then it can never be a full Concours candidate. And
Right.
I never start with a car that's numbers matching. If it's missing an engine, if it's missing its original doors, game on. Then it's something that I can build from. Like this car that's sitting right next to me right here, amazing car, 1959 Super Sunroof Coupe, originally delivered with 6 Rudge wheels. So an amazing car, silver, red interior, but the original engine, and I exhaustively looked for it, is long gone, and the deck lid was long gone. So it's never going to be that full Concours candidate. So that allows me the creative freedom to say, okay, let's have fun with it. Let's make it, drive a little better, still have, the Porsche DNA, but let's make it drive a little better. And because of that, years ago, people were like, oh man, it's going to ruin the values of the cars. And I'm like, oh, just wait, And, if you look at some of the cars that have sold, a 56 Speedster sold for, 500, which, was a strong number. A 59 Coupe that I built sold for 500. Those are Carrera numbers, which is for the Coupe, and it's, full Concours Speedster numbers for a Speedster. So I'd say that we're not hurting the values. I think we're just carrying the brand forward and evolving a few things, but really trying to honor the foundation that Porsche laid.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the success of what you're doing is when you're authentic, and there's no doubt anyone that knows who you are, you come across that way, obviously, but it's real, and when it seems to me that you are really taking every step that you can to try to keep a car as a survivor. If you could find the engine and find the original components, then you want to keep it that way. You're not looking to bastardize a car, for the sake of money.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of cars out there that are the orphans that are, that are the cars that are, whatever, that are missing, pieces that don't have a home, that need to be saved. And that's what we build our cars from. The ones that are full Concours cars, if I can still, or that are numbers matching cars, if I can preserve that, like we've got a T5 Super 90 sunroof coupe that we're doing for the Audrain Museum. That is, it was a survivor car that, is rough, but it's all there. It's never been touched. And we're going to do everything we can to retain as much of the original parts on it and do it back, the way that it was. So, I love that part of it. But the cars that definitely have been that have been, robbed of their parts, those are the perfect candidates for us to build one of our hot rods out of.
Yeah. Do you ever surprise yourself? I mean, come on. I know you're a humble guy, but do you ever build something and say, wow, that really surpassed my expectations?
That's always my goal, is that I want to surpass my expectations on every car. And I don't do it because I want it to be in a magazine. I do it because I want to be able to stand back and say, you know what, I threw everything at this car that I could. And, and I know that there's going to be people on both sides of the fence. There's going to be plenty that love it, and there's going to be plenty that don't approve of what we're doing, but that's the nature of what we're doing. I don't mind when people criticize cars that I build. I don't mind when they have their own opinions, because that's why we're all in this. We wouldn't have, my dad's old friends wouldn't have, classified our cars as outlaws in the 80s, which is why we made that little badge for the back that said 346 Outlaws, if we were doing everything the way that everybody else was back then.
Right.
Sure.
So,
and for me, it's fun.
Yeah, no, you could tell, and it's funny. What you talked about is you're not doing everything you do. Not everyone is going to love. Is the RSR, the newest one you have? We had our inner crew talking. What do you think about that car? What do you think? I was so impressed, and not because you're here talking with me. That is a bold move to take a car like that there's going to be people that are going to criticize it because they can and they do. But But which is so, being an artist, being a creator, being a builder, if you don't have that, if you don't have the ability to do that and take chances, what are you? So kudos for you for doing that, and that's why I said before at the top of this whole thing is, hey, he's reached the pinnacle of his craft, but it's almost like he just started, because you can really, there's no end to what you can do.
Well, I mean, I think it's just, if I was in this to try to impress, or in this to try to get approval from everybody, then I couldn't build the cars
Yeah.
that I build. For me, it's taking an idea or something that is from Porsche's heritage, or some little glimpse that they gave us in one of their motorsports cars, and saying,
Oh,
what if
interesting.
they would have continued? What if they would have continued doing some of those things? And I look at, that's why my specials have the louvered panels like the Spiders have. Those were on a Spider because you open them up and you dial in the carburetors. Obviously, we're rear engine, but I added that element to the cars. The 911. I don't know if you saw the 911K that I built, that I called the
Yeah.
911K. It's a ivory car with a yellow nose. That
Yes.
car for me. And I built about 20 911s. I don't really do a lot in the 911 stuff because my true kind of foundation is 356. But that car, because I've restored a 908 and also some other prototype cars, I always was like, man, if I could just build a 911 with as many 908 or early race parts as I can, I want to build it. And so the idea with that car was, okay, I've got a 68 911 to build a car. What cars were being built in 68? Well, the 908K was being built. And, I still had spare parts from and ideas from when we were restoring that car. So I'm like, let's do a 911 with center lock hubs and amber fiberglass and horns coming out the front, like the Vic Elford, Targa Florio car, and, all this kind of fun stuff, amber fiberglass all over.
That was at
And,
your open, it
a
was at your open house, no?
It was.
I saw that. Yeah, yeah. Very cool. Wow.
Yeah. But fun stuff like that. And, it wasn't a car that fits the kind of 911R mold. It doesn't fit the traditional R group type cars. It was just a car that was creative and fun. And so for me, that's what I love. I love taking some idea, the RSR that you brought up, I knew for sure that it was going to create controversy because, it was going to be, well, first of all, I love 935s. I love the RSRs that as the 911 evolved and morphed into, but, you can only imagine the first time the public saw a 935, they were probably like, holy smokes, slant nose and massive wing and taillights tucked behind the rear fenders and flames coming out the back. And it was just, it was like, wow. But Porsche did it. And so everybody's like, yes, so I was like, for me, I was like, what if Porsche would have had that same kind of mindset, 15, 20 years earlier, and the 356 was the only platform they had? What would they have done? But they had this, so it was just kind of an idea of taking a 356 and, I needed a platform to test out our turbocharged 400 horsepower engine. And Momo wanted to, build something to, tie back to their heritage. And so we thought, let's build a car that uses the cool, iconic Momo center lock hub. And if we're going to have 400 horsepower, we better have awesome suspension and all kinds of other stuff. So we used all 964 stuff. And it was more focused on the mechanical side of building a car. And then let's wrap it in functional body work, something that we can, turn Zeus's or cam locks and remove the body, and let's do it in aluminum because that's kind of what Porsche would have done to lighten up a 356 back in the day, as opposed to fiberglass. And let's just have fun with it, and that's what the car was. And I knew that people would love it or they'd hate it, and that was it, but that's not why we built it. We built it because we wanted to build something special and fun, and I mean, the thing is a monster. You take it to the track and it drives like a little cup car. And, imagine 1,900 pounds with,
I've dreamed what it's like to be behind the wheel of that. Maybe next time I'm out there. Is that in your possession now, or?
It is. Yeah. So the reason it was back in Florida for DRT, but we're doing some stuff with Forza and also Hot Wheels. So I'm not going to go into great details, but that car's, we did, I've got a Hot Wheels of some of our earlier cars, and right now to date, 2 of my cars are on Forza, but the RSR is going to have its turn in both of those platforms. So we'll use the car out here for some of the promotional stuff with Momo and their marketing team.
Fantastic. And I listen, I could talk to you forever, and I'm going to try to kind of wean it down here because you probably got some work to do. But one of the things that just off the sidestep here is electric vehicles. So Just your quick take on it, and more importantly, maybe there's a little scoop here I can pull out of you. Is there anything in your future, hybrid electric, that you're playing around with?
All right. So I get requests all
Yeah.
the time from people that want to put, Buick V6 or a Subaru engine or something in a 356 because they're like, oh, if Rod's crazy enough to do that, he's crazy enough to, do that. Well, I do still have some guidelines around what I'll do, and that is I'll do whatever Porsche could have done if they would have had the resources, the time, the technology, whatever. And I want to use as many Porsche parts as possible and not veer from that.
Mm.
So, why put a Subaru engine in when I can take a 911 and shrink it down to a 4-cylinder and get the same type of power? Why, do some of those things. So the same goes to electric cars for me. I'm not going to go and find a wrecked Tesla and do the Tesla integration into the cars. I don't really want to go and buy an off the shelf electric motor and batteries and put them in. And, I have a dream, or a fantasy that someday Porsche will continue to take their electric platform and shrink it down for some of their smaller platform cars. And if that's the case, if there's a safe way of doing it that I can use Porsche, parts and Porsche, pieces to integrate electric into one of my cars, then I'll consider it. But until that point, I'm going to keep dumping gas in these things. I grew up smelling gas and whether it's race gas or unleaded, tweaking carburetors. There's plenty of guys that are doing electric stuff with like replicas and some 911 stuff. But for me, if the Porsche components and platform ever allow for kind of repackaging, then I would consider it. But at this point, I'm not considering doing anything with Tesla or anything like that.
Well, we'll stay tuned on what you have coming up.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you got your ear to the ground, and you're if something makes sense, there may be something happening. So, and PDK, I know a little birdie told me before we came on here that you had some fun on a PDK with a PDK double clutch.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, there's obviously, the big debate, shifting gears or letting Porsche's amazing management system do it for you. I spend most of my life, pushing a clutch and banging gears. And so when I had an opportunity to get a 16 991 GT3 RS, I wasn't on the side of the guys that were like, oh man, it's got PDK. I was like, bring it on. I want to experience this. I want to see what this is all about. I raced a GT3 Cup car for a number of years, and Daytona. So I ran the Rolex series. So I know what it's like to be in the heat of battle and banging gears and being precise and really focusing on your shifts, and also knowing that a certain part of your brain is focused on that, and a certain part of your brain is focused on everything else with regards to racing. What I love about the PDK is that it lets me enhance those senses and those experiences of driving the track and my braking and all that other stuff, knowing that PDK is going to shift as good or better than I could ever imagine shifting.
Exactly.
And so that's why, to me, I think that the PDK is so important, because it really does shift as good or better than we could ever imagine shifting.
Well, don't you remember being a kid and seeing in the Road and Track magazine the 0 to 60s, and the sticks were always the fastest cars, and then it kind of eventually, it's amazing how eventually humans cannot do the transaction as fast as a computer. So you have to accept that.
Absolutely. You just have to go into it with the right mindset. And it's such an amazing experience when you're on the track and everything is just in perfect harmony. And you're just, I was at Willow Springs this weekend trying some new tires on my RS, and I was appreciating that PDK.
Yeah.
I spend plenty of time, shifting gears. It's fun to really see how far technology has come. And to know that, that gearbox is still a gearbox. It's not an automatic. It's a gearbox that the machine is shifting for you. And that's what some people just don't understand. It's not like your old minivan, automatic transmission.
Yeah.
Like this thing
Yeah.
is a wicked
It's
transmission.
incredible. You know, the way I look at
And
it, the way I look at it is this. I am a three pedals stick. I love it. It's my enjoyment on the weekends, and I have a lot of fun. But I am so excited about the electric cars. I'm so excited about the PDK, and what I call it for my own sanity is the petrol life. I can have all of these new incredible features, let the manufacturers duke it out so we get the greatest product that you can get, and we always have the ability to hop in our joys, our fun
Yep.
cars.
Yeah.
So what is wrong? Let go for it. Give us the best you have, and then we will always have our petrol life. So that's kind of my sanity in looking at it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, something that I love and really enjoy, and this is my little, non-paid endorsement and plug for PEC, the Porsche Experience Center. One of my favorite places on earth, because it gives us all an opportunity to go and experience that technology, as
Incredible.
you are talking about. And tomorrow, the Los Angeles PEC is opening up, reopening, and my family and I are going there to have lunch and experience kind of some of their new program that they're doing, and just because they're having to shift their program for all the COVID stuff,
Sure.
and I haven't had a chance to be behind the wheel or to experience a Taycan, and I'm just hoping that tomorrow is the day. So I'm pretty excited.
You have not driven the Taycan.
No, I have not yet.
I have. I have, and I'm telling you that I felt like I was in a Porsche with just in another generation, but it felt familiar. It felt at home. It felt very comfortable. I felt like I was in. That was the most amazing thing to me, is that I felt like I was in a Porsche, but yet it was new. It was a brand new experience. To me, how does a manufacturer do that? It's what they've been doing forever.
Yeah, I know, and I'm super excited, So looking forward to it. But for those that haven't made it to Atlanta or Los Angeles or one of the other experience centers around the world, man, it really is a gift that Porsche gives us. That it costs a little bit of money, but it is so worth it. It's so worth it. I've done the driving experience part of it 3 times and loved every single one of it. Even as a driver, somebody that's raced, and I've been racing for 30 years, or since 1990 when I got my license, and spent a lot of time on the track. And I went there with an open mind and learned so much from the amazing instructors, and it really is a cool program.
Yeah. And again, just 2 more things, and I'll ask you a few questions, and I'll let you get back. Is July 10th and 12th? I know you had something planned, and I saw the video about your Emery campout, and I'll tell you what a beautiful experience it seemed like. And I know a friend of mine here in New York actually went out to yours years ago. Is it happening? Is it open to the public, and is it happening?
So a quick history on the campout. In 1994, we started doing the Emory Porsche campout. I've got 50 acres in Oregon, which is where my whole business was back in, started dating back to the early 90s. We've got 50 acres, and it's a big campground around our shops. And so we started doing an annual campout from 94 until 2012, and inviting all of our Porsche customers and friends from all over the world. And we had events that ranged anywhere from, early ones only had a couple hundred, but we had as much as 1,500 people at some of them. We did that every year until 2012, when I moved the workshop back down here. And then in 2017, we did a 5-year reunion, and it was amazing. We had, nearly 1,000 people, and people drove from all over, shipped cars in from Europe. To answer your question, it's open to the public. That have the Porsche passion or enthusiasm. You don't have to own a Porsche, but you have to appreciate them and want to be there, because it's all about the community.
Yep.
You can come in your Eurovan if you want to camp. You can camp in one of the bed, or you can stay at one of the bed and breakfasts, or you can drive your 356 and pitch a tent. And that's the fun of it. But we had it planned for July 10th through the 12th this year as our 20th event. We thought, hey, our 20th event, let's do it in 2020. Sure. And that was the plan. But unfortunately, the governor of Oregon said no large gatherings until later on in the year. So we had to cancel it. Unfortunately, I won't say cancel it. We just postponed it to next year. So it'll be in July of 2021,
Okay.
and it's open to the public, and people, come from all over the world, and it really is. It's like the event that you can kind of let your hair down and have fun and enjoy. You're camping in a really cool setting, live music, barbecues, outdoor showers, an old barn that we turn into a movie theater, and we'll have 1,000 people and usually 400 or 500 cars. So.
It sounds like something everyone can use. Everyone needs an experience like that. It sounds terrific. So thank you. So what I'm going to do, like I did with Michael, is I'm going to ask you 10 quick questions. Just give me nothing is crazy here, but we just want to get, this is going to help us or people learn a little bit more about you. You ready?
Yep.
Here we go. GM, Ford, or Mopar?
Ford.
Football or baseball?
What are those? No, definitely. I love them. I love them both equal because they're both family sports and activities, and the family and I go to football games and baseball games right here in Southern California.
So there's a tie. Yeah. Turbo or naturally aspirated?
Ooh, that's a tough one. But currently, right now, I love naturally aspirated.
Amen. Vacation. You want to explore a new city or a new beach?
Oh man, because I don't really see any a new city or a new beach.
If you're going on vacation,
how about national parks? I've never been to Yellowstone.
There you go.
So I want to go to Yellowstone.
Okay. Steak or sushi?
Oh, definitely steak. My daughter Jade and I are steak eaters, and my wife Amy and Zane are sushi. So it's always the debate. Friday night debate. Are we going to sushi? Are we going to steak?
So
I'm a steak eater.
So surf and turf it is.
Yeah.
Cannonball Run or Gumball Rally?
Ooh.
Got to pick one.
Never done Gumball.
Gumball. Okay. Your favorite color?
Silver.
All right.
All right. Yeah.
Coupe or cab?
They both have a cabriolet with a hard top, removable hard top.
That's a safe. Can we accept that? Okay. Alfa or Lancia?
What are those?
Alfa.
Is that pasta? Is that Italian food?
Yes. Pasta. What is it? Pasta Vazul. No. Alfa or Lancia? Alfa Romeo. Two Italian cars. Alfa Romeo and Lancia.
To be honest, I don't know anything about either one of them.
Wow.
It's not a Porsche. It's just transportation.
We just learned something. Now, see, sometimes you learn something with no answer. And finally, F1 and Indy.
Oh, that's a tough one. Currently, in the household, it's more F1 talk. When I was a kid, it was more Indy. So yeah, currently F1.
Great. All right. I hope I didn't put you on the spot too bad. That's okay?
No.
Rod, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and we're excited to see what you have coming in the future. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate all that you guys are doing for the industry.
Thanks, Rod. Bye-bye.
Take care.